Hi guys, welcome back to another segment with the South Texas Literacy Coalition. Today we're going to be doing another health literacy event or health literacy session with one of our very good partners from UTRGV's Health and Human Performance Department, Mr. Ivan Figueroa.
Hello everybody, hopefully you're doing great and nice to be back again.
Yeah, nice to see you again. So today we're going to be talking about a few things having to do with, cardiovascular diseases, which many of these things could be related, cardiovascular, what's cardiovascular? It's having to do with your heart. Many times we have people that or family relatives that come with a history of heart attacks, strokes, hypertension, and stuff like that. So today we're going to be talking about a few tips on how to either prevent or how to deal with it, how to maybe catch it early on before onset and stuff like that. But really quickly, before we get started, I just want to go ahead and just do some really quick announcements. We are going to be having a trivia night tonight at 7 p.m. on our Facebook Live, kind of how we do our live sessions with our professors and different stuff like that. We are going to be having live trivia tonight at 7 p.m. It is going to be free. This one is going to be free. We're looking into doing more in the future that are going to have a small little entry fee, but today's is completely free. The theme is Pixar, and if you guys want to go ahead and participate, you guys have to register before 3 p.m. today, and it's super simple to register. Like I said, it's free. All you got to do is go to our page on Facebook, go to our events, click on the Pixar Trivia Night event, and there should be an Eventbrite link. Right now, in a little bit, while we start the presentation, I'll go ahead and leave the link in the comment section. So like that, you guys can just go ahead and click it and go sign up. And also, we are currently having a blood drive with UTRGV and Vitalent. It's going to be today and tomorrow at the Edinburgh Activity Center, I believe from 10 a.m. to about 2 or 3 p.m.
Until 2:30 p.m. Yeah, but if you show up with your appointment, you can still be there until you're able to donate blood. So it takes about 40 minutes to about an hour to completely donate, again, because of all the screening, checking again your health status, and after that we'll just relax and donate. If you plan on donate, we highly appreciate it. Make sure that you have a good breakfast. Don't show up fasted. It's not a lab work. And also be hydrated before going to that event. Other thing is wear your mask. We'll try to still maintain all the CDC guidelines. So keep your social distancing, face mask, and they provide also antibacterial, so hand sanitizer. So it's totally safe to go donate unless you have some symptoms. Then stay at home. Just be safe for your own health and also others individuals. But yeah, thank you so much for mentioning that, and we'll mention it back again.
Yeah, definitely. Okay, so let's go ahead and get started.
All right, so first of all, let's talk about cardiovascular health. And like you mentioned perfectly, it is related to your heart. But some people tend to forget that your cardiovascular system is not just your heart. Yes, the heart is a central part of it, but it's also comprised of your blood vessels, including your arteries, your veins, the smaller also arterioles, venules, and your capillaries. And all the thing is blood, pretty important. We tend to neglect it, but blood is a part of your cardiovascular system as well. So everything related to all these structures is going to be compromising your cardiovascular health. So maybe your heart is pretty healthy, but the components of the blood are not. So if you have a diet rich in too much fat or too much sodium, then that's going to put an extra stress on every other structure in your cardiovascular system. So let's talk about some of the cardiovascular disease, and this is really an umbrella of a conjunction of different conditions that affect the whole cardiovascular system, which again, if one of these systems is being damaged or is being affected, then pretty much the whole cardiovascular system will have to keep up with that, increase the intensity or work a little harder to keep up with that demand. So in terms of cardiovascular disease, it is not just in the US, but pretty much is the number one reasons of death in the whole world. So globally take an estimated of 17.9 million of lives each year. So it's pretty important because it's not just only about death, which is a huge deal, but it's also your overall life expectancy. Because once you have one of these disease, if you don't treat it correctly, or if you don't take the precautions that come with this, then that's going to be affecting your daily life activities. You're not going to be able to do everything that you want to do, like play with your children, play with your grandkids, go to the groceries, walk around. So, or you're going to be needing to take medication, in some cases using external aid, ventilators, and so on to just be alive. So, some of the facts that we have here in the US is that 1 in 3 deaths in the United States are due to a cardiovascular disease. About 1 in every 6 healthcare dollars are spent in some form of cardiovascular disease. Now, most of the people that are affected, of course, are the elderly, but we start to see that there's this increasing trend on younger individuals, younger than 65, having some type of cardiovascular disease, which most of the time can be prevented by the way that we live. Our lifestyle choices pretty much determine the risk of developing this cardiovascular disease. So more information before we go into what are these cardiovascular diseases. It's approximately 1.5 million heart attacks and strokes occur every year in the United States. So yes, heart attacks and strokes is pretty much what we're most familiar with when we hear about cardiovascular disease or heart problems. Yeah, you had a stroke or you have a heart attack, and most of those again happen in just an instance. There's some symptoms that you can start to see, some signs, but pretty much is if you see one of those, call 911 and you need to take medical help immediately. Now, based again on your lifestyle choices, you can see who has a greater risk of having a heart attack or having a stroke. So this is again very important, and we talk about it a little bit of how can we identify those persons that have greater risk of having these conditions. So no more information is that about 800,000 people in the United States die from cardiovascular disease each year. And again, it's 1 out of every 3 deaths in the whole. It is including every other cause of death, including respiratory disease, accidents, and cancers. Still, cardiovascular disease is the #1 cause of death in the US. Heart disease and stroke cause the nation an estimate of 316.6 billion in healthcare costs and lost productivity back in 2011. And we expect to see those numbers to increase as we go throughout the years. So in relates to gender, pretty much females at some point are protected due to estrogen, but once they go past menopause, then pretty much the chance of getting a heart attack or a heart stroke is even for both genders. But if females do have it, approximately 1 in 4 women will die in the first year compared to 1 in 5 men if they do have a heart attack. And if we look at the time, for every 4 minutes, we have an average of 1 American dying from a stroke. So again, the facts and the statistics are right there. And for the most part, the way we're living, we expect to see these numbers to keep increasing. So maybe by the next time, 1 American will be dying every 3 or 2 minutes by a heart attack or a cardiovascular disease complication. Okay. And we'll keep mentioning and we're going to be talking about it, but most cardiovascular disease can be prevented. But going back again to your lifestyle choices, whether it's exercise, nutrition, your physical activity overall, or your weight, these are things that you can control and can minimize your risk of developing these conditions. Again, obesity, tobacco use, unhealthy diet, all of this, we try to keep talk over and over and over, and still we see the importance of it, but our decisions are not showing on the statistics. Now, people with cardiovascular disease or who are at a higher cardiovascular risk due to other presence of other conditions such as diabetes, hypertension, dyslipidemia, which is a combination of cholesterol or low levels of the healthy cholesterol, those already have a higher risk of having a stroke or a heart attack, or even if they have one of those, is going to be mostly a fatal event compared to someone that has a control on all these previous mentioned conditions. Now, too much talking about cardiovascular disease. What are these cardiovascular diseases that we're talking? Well, we can combine them all talking about cardiovascular disease, but we can look at what are the zones or the structures affected and giving a name to those. So coronary heart disease is pretty much damage to the blood vessels in the heart. So those that supply the heart itself, because the heart is a muscle, so it also needs a constant supply of blood. So whenever we have a blockage or damage to those vessels, then we call that a coronary heart disease. A cerebrovascular disease is the vessels that supply the blood to the brain. They have a rupture, they have a clot, they have a damage. So that's going to be cerebrovascular disease. A peripheral artery disease is pretty much to your extremities, whether it's your arms or your legs. And rheumatic heart disease is pretty much due to a bacteria. So mostly it's going to be effective for children if they have this condition. But for adults, it's pretty rare to see the rheumatic heart disease. Congenital heart disease is based on when you're born. So that's hereditary. So people that have the condition more than likely will also pass it on to their children and so on. And lastly, we got the deep vein thrombosis and pulmonary embolism, which is a blood formation in the veins or the outside of the heart itself. So you can look at these structures again. This all together, you can have the disease, and pretty much most of this we call it a silent killer type of thing, because you don't have really a sign of symptom until you develop a heart attack or you have a stroke. And then we see that because you had all these damages of the structures, then that cause that issue. Now again, in some cases even exercise itself can give you a higher risk of having a heart attack or a stroke, but the chances of getting that at high intensities, and if you have everything under control, your chances of survival are way better compared to someone that has a pre-existing condition. So all this cardiovascular disease, the best thing to diagnose them is, of course, go to the physician, have regular checkups, but also going into this risk that we're going to talk about in a little bit. If you see that you have two or more of this risk, then I encourage you to keep track and monitor your health at least, I'll say, 6 months. Every 6 months or so, get a regular checkup, go with your physician, and see what areas can you improve to minimize this risk. Again, some can be modified, but other ones cannot, such as your age and your family history. You cannot control those, but everything else you can take control into minimizing those risks. Now, talking about the common symptoms, these are just for the heart attack. So once it is occurring, in regards to the disease and condition itself, again, sometimes you don't notice it until it's too late. So common symptoms for a heart attack, again, if you have any of those or you see someone experiencing one of the symptoms, best thing to do is call 911 immediately. So often, again, there's none of this. Things that you can look is number one, pain or discomfort in the chest. Now, for females, most of the time it's going to be on the neck or on the left arm, not necessarily on the chest. So you need to identify the difference between the genders itself. Number two is lightheadedness, nausea, or vomiting. And some people might not have chest pain, but they do start to feel a little lightheaded or a little sick type of thing, nauseated. Three, jaw, knee, or back pain. Fourth is discomfort, pain in the arm or shoulder. Again, mostly females experience these symptoms. And number five is shortness of breath. Because again, the blood is a transport mechanism for oxygen. So whenever we block any of these vessels, not much oxygen is getting to the tissues that we needed, including your brain, including your respiratory system. So that's going to be causing you to have trouble breathing. So best thing to do is, again, call 911. If you have someone that knows CPR or first aid available, then try to get them into the room. I heard that aspirin can also be prevented in some cases, and it's a fact. But for the most part, it's, again, just try to make the person rest, sit down, and then just wait for the emergency personnel to show up and see what else can they do.
Yeah, yeah,
About
I heard something about aspirin being a blood clotter. If I'm not mistaken, it
the
could possibly be
blood thinner, yes,
blood thinner.
blood
There you
thinner,
go. I
yes,
knew it was
correct.
something having to do with blood. But I've heard that as well, that aspirin can help with heart attacks, because I wasn't sure if it was clotter or blood thinner, but I've heard of that as well. And also, if I remember correctly, in my clinical physiology of exercise, class with Dr. Sanmia, I believe we were going over heart attacks and cardiovascular diseases in that class with him. And I believe, if I recall correctly, he said that heart attacks are also known as the widowmaker, because it happens more in men than it does in women. So oftentimes it happens that it takes the life away of a male before it does of a female. But am I correct?
Yeah, so Widowmaker, because up to a certain age, we see mostly on men. And
Mm-hmm.
when I talk about right now the risk factors, depending on age, again, like I mentioned, females do have some protective mechanism due to estrogen. But after that, pretty much the chances of a heart attack are getting even after that. So, yeah, aspirin is a good way to help the blood movement because, again, we expand the vessels, so more blood flow is going to the tissues. Still, if you have any of these symptoms, do not just take the aspirin and just go away, keep on with your life. If anything has happened, again, it might be an indicator that you have already cardiovascular disease. So, what are those risk factors? Again, if you haven't gone to your doctor, you can go through these risk factors and see if you're higher chance of getting one of these cardiovascular events, or if you're not one of the other ones. So, the most important one is, of course, your lifestyle. So, your diet and your physical activity. So, on this picture, you can see the right side, everything healthier. So, you got control of your nutrition, eating what we call healthy fats, which include your omega-3 and omega-6 coming from your fishes, avocado, a good variety of vegetables and fruits. You're being physically active, following the recommendations, at least 30 minutes of physical activity a day for 3 days out of the week. Accumulate at least 150 minutes of moderate physical activity per week. And of course, moderate your consumption of alcohol. I know some people some scientists recommend wine, but just like 1 or 2 glasses, not overdoing it in
Not
wine.
the whole bottle.
Yeah, exactly. Not a whole bottle. So 1 or 2 glasses with your food is good enough, again, to promote some benefits in terms of your cardiovascular health. Now, the negative side, of course, we got the junk food, eating too much sugar, eating too much fat, especially trans fat, tobacco use, a lot of alcohol consumption, and also sodium. High intake of sodium increases your chances of having hypertension, and that increases the way that the heart needs to work. So that increases the resistance. So now the heart needs to exercise or contract at a greater force. So now we're having too much stress on your heart. Now, and the other fixed factors, such as your gender, again, males tend to have more chances than females. Your age is another one. As you get older, of course, your chance of having these conditions and these events increases, and also based on your parents and your grandparents. So if your family have a history of cardiovascular disease, then sorry, but more than likely you will also experience some of this cardiovascular disease. Again, if you have control over your lifestyle, then having the family history might not be a great issue compared to someone else. But if you got two people that have a similar lifestyle, but one of them, their parents have a cardiovascular disease, or their grandparents died of cardiovascular disease, then more than likely that person will also be developing a cardiovascular disease. You're more predisposed to develop these conditions. And again, about 90% of Americans consume too much sodium. It increases the higher risk for high blood pressure, which is a major contributor to heart disease and stroke. So take a look at all the food that you eat. Again, food label is pretty important. I know that about 2 grams of sodium is the daily intake. We tend to eat way more than that. I think the average that we consume is about 4 or 3 grams of sodium per day. So it all adds up to your total intake for the week, for the year, and so on. So it just keep adding that risk. Uh, Other thing is to consider is obesity. So many Americans have risk for cardiovascular disease, about 36% higher chance for those that are obese, 30% for those that are physically inactive, 29% for those that have high blood pressure, 17% for cigarette smoking, 12% for high cholesterol, and 9% for those with diabetes. Now, this is just looking at individual disease, but we tend to see that individuals that have obesity already are inactive. They also have high blood pressure, not always, but the majority do have high blood pressure. they also have high cholesterol, and more than likely they also have diabetes. So we just add this total, and it just increasing your chances of having a development of the disease or having a greater chance of experiencing a stroke or a heart attack. Now, pretty sure you're familiar with this table right here. The risk factors, we go over this during classes. So we get a case study, we look at the person, all the history that we can collect, and then we tend to see whether or not this person is at a greater risk of a cardiovascular disease or a cardiovascular event, and what things can we change to modify. So on blue are the ones, on blue arrow is the ones that you can change or that you can have some control on it. But the first two is pretty much non-changeable. You cannot change those. So H, we look at men, and you look at women, so both genders. For men, if you're 45 years or older, then that's already a positive risk factor for having a cardiovascular event. And we're going to be looking at positive and negative. So positive, in this case, doesn't mean a good thing. It means that you are a greater chance of having a cardiovascular related event. So if you're 45 years or older and you're a male, that's one positive risk factor. You can count on your house how many of the risk factors you have. If you're women, then 55 years or older. Now, like we mentioned again, women do have some protective mechanism due to estrogen, but after menopause, then that increases the chances of having a cardiovascular event. So therefore, the reason of women having a little 10 more years gap compared to men. For family history is if any of your first degree relatives have a death due to a cardiovascular event or have some medical treatment or surgery related to a heart disease. So a heart attack, a bypass surgery, or sudden death before age of 55 for father, brother, or before 65 years old for mother or sister. So right there, you can just count positive one or two, or probably you don't have any of the risk factors. So then we look at the other ones that you can change, such as cigarette smoking. So if you're a current smoker or have quit, but it's still less than 6 months, then that's already a positive risk factor. Or if you have a family member that's close to you and they smoke, then you're a secondhand smoker. So that's already another risk factor. Sedentary lifestyle, if you don't meet the criteria that we talked about it before, 150 minutes of moderate physical activity during the week for at least 3 months, then that's already another risk factor. Obesity, you can look at the BMI. It's not ideal, but you can look at it. If it is more than 30 kilograms per meter square, then that's already a positive risk factor. Now, the way to calculate body mass index is you take your weight and you divide it by your height in meters, and then you multiply that to the second power. So for my example would be if I weigh 90 kilograms, I divide that by my height, which is 1.8 meters. So I multiply 1.8 and 1.8, and whatever I get, I'll be dividing that the 90 over whatever I got there. So that's going to be my BMI. If it is higher than 30, then that increases my chances of having the cardiovascular disease. Now, in some cases, it might not work because what happens if you're physically active? If you got too much muscle, BMI cannot distinguish between muscle or fat. So what you can do is look at your waist circumference, which is a pretty good indicator of obesity. If you got more fat distributed on your abdominal area, then that increases your chances of a heart problem. So if we look at your waist circumferences for men, anything higher than 102 centimeters or 40 inches is a positive risk factor. For female, anything higher than 88 centimeters or 85 inches is considered a risk factor as well. For hypertension is your blood pressure. So systolic blood pressure, we take the readings. If you're not familiar with it, whenever you go to the doctor, that's the first thing they're going to look into, your heart rate and your blood pressure. They put the blood pressure monitor, or they put the inflatable one. And if the reading is higher than 140 millimeters of mercury for systolic or 90 millimeters of mercury or higher for diastolic, then that's already a positive risk factor for high blood pressure. Now, other thing is, if they're currently taking medication, then that's a risk factor. Whether you have a control, what we consider healthy, lower than 120 over 80, but you're taking medication to control it, then you're already diagnosed with hypertension. So that's already a risk factor. Dyslipidemia has to do with cholesterol. So if you have low density cholesterol, high density cholesterol, the low density cholesterol is what we call the bad cholesterol, but it's not necessarily bad. Just having too much is what makes it bad. and the HDL or high density is what we consider the healthy one. So having too low of that one or too much of the other one is considered a dyslipidemia or a cholesterol in this case. If you only have total cholesterol available, then more than 200 milligrams per deciliter will be considered a dyslipidemia risk factor. Now, it can be all three, only one, or only two. It still is only considered one risk factor. Again, this is when I teach this class. Some students look at this study and they talk, oh, so this person has high LDL, low HDL, and high triglycerides, so he has three positive risk factors, but it only counts as one in this case. And another one is diabetes. If you are diabetic, then that's another thing. It increases your chances pretty high already. But if you're pre-diabetic or you have a family history of diabetics, then that is another risk factor as well. Now, the only negative risk factor is going to be having a high HDL. Now, the way that you can increase your HDL is through physical activity and through exercise. So it is a protective mechanism. And if you have, let's go up, and you added three positive risk factors, but you have one HDL, which is the negative, then you really only have two risk factors. Now, before, I think back in 2014, the risk factor was a good indicator of whether or not you should send someone to get a physical exam before prescribing exercise. Now it is up to the health individual or the health professional to decide whether or not to send it to the physician. But for the most part, we always recommend, if you see that someone has two or more, especially the ones that you can modify, then first send it to the physician, make sure they're clear and then in optimal health, and then you can prescribe exercise, or you can work with them to modify these risk factors. And I don't know if you want to mention if that's experience with those case studies. And I know some of my students hated those. Other ones love going over that because for my classes, I usually encourage them to go with their grandparents or their parents and find out overall their health. So it's something you can do at home as well. So I'll go back to this one again. Just get to this table and start putting a check mark whether or not you follow into these risk factors or not.
Yeah, we used to always have these a lot, whether it was, I remember in your class or in Mr. Sonia's class for testing and prescription. Um, right when I saw the tables, I was like, oh, this is out of the book. I actually have the book almost right next to me, my old textbook. But yeah, I remember that this was very important for us whenever, because the course that we were taking was testing and prescription. So it was having to do, in the name, testing. We were testing to prescribe any type of workout or physical activity to patients. So oftentimes we had case studies that said, oh, patient X is 35 years old, has a family history of his father passed away from a heart attack. He was a cigarette smoker, but he quit 10 months ago, and he exercises for at least 45 minutes 5 days out of the week, and they would just give you a bit of a run through of kind of their background and their stats, and then from there you have to know by memory. This is a table that we had to learn by memory, and we had to say, okay, his age, he's good, it's not a risk factor. Family, his father passed away from a heart attack, okay, that's a risk factor. Cigarette smoking, he was a smoker but he quit more than 6 months ago, okay, that's not a risk factor. And we had to go down the line, and then from there would ask us the classification of the risk, if they were low, moderate, or high risk. And depending on how many risk factors, basically how many yeses from this list that is shown are a yes, it categorizes on what type of risk you are. And depending on what risk you are, say, okay, you're low risk, you don't need a physical examination, you can continue with the testing and the prescription. If they're moderate risk, okay, then you need to send them, you need to do further testing. And then if they're high risk, they need to see a physician before they go to you for testing. So I actually really like them. Specifically because it happened that I took your course and I took Mr. Sonia's course together within the same semester. So it was kind of like a double review because I was taking, we were speaking about it in both of your guys' classes. So it was good for me that I was taking both of you together that semester. But it's kind of something, it's a bit of a struggle in the beginning because so many of the numbers are specific, and especially for us that we were encouraged to learn them by memory. but they followed me throughout the rest of my degree plan. So I kind of had to learn them either I wanted to or not because they came up in other courses. So I really like the case studies.
Yeah, no, sure. This is pretty much based on whatever we have in science. So everything backed up by studies. So again, we look at how many people have had experience in the band. So we just put all this table together. Well, I didn't do it, put it, but like ACSM did it, as well as American Heart Association and other organizations related to health. Now, you were mentioning something about the low risk, medium risk, and high risk. We stopped doing that on the previous edition. So the last edition that we have, which is the 10, they took away that classification, so it's now only you're low or you're a higher risk. So
Wow.
there's no more medium anymore. So the only difference is you either classify them as low or higher risk for having cardiovascular disease,
Hmm.
or the other, if you have already a condition diagnosed, then you're the highest risk. That's the only two ways that you can go. So first, you get as much information from the individual, from your client, and then you decide, okay, so if this person is already taking medication or has a disease, then that's going to be having pretty much a more caution exercise prescription. If you got someone with this risk factors, again, they're pretty much considered asymptomatic, meaning they don't have any pain, they don't have any problem, so they can exercise, but just at a lower intensity than someone that doesn't have this risk.
Yeah,
Now,
it's kind of like signs and symptoms. Like if you had a few signs, you were okay, but as soon as you had one symptom, you were automatically classified as high risk because you already had a present, a visible symptom.
correct. So exactly. So this is a risk. Now, in terms of the symptoms, pretty much a symptom is whether you have a rest or a low intensity exercise. You have chest pain, you have trouble breathing, you have what we call claudication, and which
Hmm.
is pain on your calf muscles, or you start to feel it dizziness or fainted, not because you skip breakfast, but because you start doing some type of physical activity, then that automatically puts you at a higher risk. That is already a symptom or a sign. So if you have any of those, first thing you need to go is immediately go to the physician. If you see that something is not normal, that you go up the stairs and you're feeling out of breath, that's not something normal. So immediately go and get your examination, your physical examination. If you know that you ran before and you never got a shot of breath, or you start to experience pain, especially again on your lower extremities, again, there's not enough blood flow to them, or if your heart needs to work too high at the extra intensity that you're not supposed to have it like that, then that automatically again is something out of the normal conditions. Now, talking about normal, what are those healthy measurements? So for BMI, again, the ideal BMI should be between 18.5 to 29.9 kilograms per meter square. Again, this has to be an optimal weight. You don't want to be underweight, but you don't want to be overweight either. For the measurement of your waist circumference, again, for men, lower than 40 inches. For female, lower than 37 inches. For other measurements in cholesterol, especially those that have done a lab work, they know what they were talking about. So your low cholesterol or your high density cholesterol, or just your total cholesterol, or another one is your triglycerides. So if you have done one of these lab works, you remember you have to be fasted, so at least 8 to 12 hours, and then they take a blood sample and they give you the results. So there's other things that they look into, but in terms of cholesterol, we look at your total cholesterol, triglycerides, your LDL, which you want to have in at optimal levels, and HDL is the one that we want to have high, which is the one what we call the good cholesterol. For hypertension or your blood pressure, again, the normal should be lower than 120 over 80 millimeters of mercury, and then hypertension is anything higher than 120 over 80, so systolic and diastolic. And for your sugar levels, so there's different ways that you can do. You can do the HbA1c through your lab work, or you can do the oral glucose test. And there's two of those. You can do the fasted, which again, not food or anything. You take a little mixture of glucose or a drink that has a lot of sugar, and we see how well your body responds in 2 hours. So ideally, you want to lower it down. Or the other one that you can do is the 2 hour. Again, we'll give you a sample of a drink that has a lot of sugar, and we'll look into how well your body managed to lower it down. So you can look at either of those, and that is going to be determined whether you have a normal level in terms of your insulin secretion, or if you're pre-diabetic, or if you got diabetic. So there's different measurements. So the first one, or the most common one, is the HbA1c. So you want to have it lower than 5.7%. Pre-diabetics between 5.1 to 6.4 have this measurement, and those are already diabetic, they have it at more than 6.5. Again, it takes a while to lower your HbA1c with diet and exercise. And in terms of prevention, the best thing again is go back to those risk factors. If you got the table, see which ones you have at a higher risk or which one you have positive, and then just try to modify them. Especially again, those that we mentioned, eat a healthier diet, try to stay away from sodium, try to eat more healthy fats, again, nuts and seeds, avocados, fish, change your lard and everything into more vegetable oils, maintain a healthy weight. Again, obesity is one of the risk factors. So if you're able to lower down your weight, tada, you got that one. Be active most of the days, not just to lower down your weight, but also it is a good way to improve your cardiovascular health. To stimulate, again, your heart is a muscle. So the more that you train it, the stronger it's going to be. Even if you have a heart attack, then the chances of survival by having the heart exposed to exercise is greater than someone that is not active. Don't smoke, and also try to limit your alcohol consumption. So as much as you can. Again, if you have to drink, then ideally use a glass of wine, not any of the other type of alcohol. Again, I'm not encouraging you to drink, but if you need to select, then a wine of glass is good enough. Again, some people even encouraging the study on people that live on Europe, and they tend to be healthier than the people from the US. Again, based on their diet, but also they eat more fish, more wine, more that we call the Mediterranean diet. Now, there are other diets also. Again, the DASH diet is a pretty famous one for hypertension and try to control cardiovascular health.
Cool. Yeah, I didn't know that about wine. I think I had heard it from somebody, but I kind of I think I just thought they were kind of using it as an excuse to kind of excuse their drinking of wine. But I had heard about that study before. I remember hearing about it very slightly, but I didn't really look too much into it. But wow, it's good to know, so I can tell my mother, because my mother, I always get after her when she wants to drink a glass of wine, but now I don't have to because it helps her heart health. So that's pretty cool. You learn something new every day. So I'm gonna go ahead and share my screen to kind of give you guys some quick announcements before we go ahead and finish up. So if you go to our events page on our Facebook, first of all, kind of just a bit of a reminder, we are having a blood drive today and tomorrow at the Edinburgh Activity Center. It's right across the street from the Edinburgh Cat Stadium. It's near our Edinburgh School Library and our Parks and Recreation here in Edinburgh. So we will be there. Well, not us physically because we're at our homes doing this presentation, but I believe, I'm not mistaken, Mr. Paredes and our team from Vitalent will be there today and tomorrow from 10 a.m. to 2:30 p.m. If you guys want to be a hero and go donate some blood to help out our current patients in the hospital, that we do have quite a few, especially COVID patients right now at this time. Our hospitals are almost up to capacity, and a lot of these patients are needing blood transfusions. So we do encourage you guys to make an appointment beforehand. If you look in the bottom left corner right here, we have the website where you guys can go and register ahead of time. It helps the process of your waiting time while you're there. We know with the state of the world, you guys don't want to be outside of your home very much, and we completely understand that. So if you guys go ahead and make an appointment beforehand, kind of helps you not to be waiting there for so long, and it makes the recording process a little bit faster and the registration process a little bit faster. Of course, we are requiring masks. There is antibacterial hand sanitizer available 24/7 there, so that you can, everything is very well kept, sanitized, cleaned between each patient that gets on the chair to donate blood. Everything is sterilized. It's a very safe environment. Vitalent has been very good at making the process and making the experience as safe as possible. And so if you guys want to donate, feel it's free for you guys to donate. You guys are helping save a life. For every unit of blood, you can be helping, I believe, up to 4 people per unit of blood. Last time when we had a blood drive a few weeks ago in June, we had 80 units of blood donated in just 2 days. And if you multiply 80 by 4, that is, I believe, more than 200 people that have been helped with those 80 units of blood. So it's for a good cause. Also, when you guys donate blood, Vitalent is testing every sample of any unit of blood that's being taken for COVID antibodies. So if you know you were exposed to the virus, or if you may not know that you were exposed to the virus and may have had it and been asymptomatic and didn't know, they will let you know if you test positive for the antibodies. And if you do, we strongly encourage you to donate plasma so that we can use your antibodies to help treat and fight the virus in current COVID patients. So if you guys go to our Facebook page, you're able to find this flyer and find this information. Go out there and go save a life and help us out with the UTRGV H&K Club. They're going to be there. Mr. Paredes, I believe he is there currently right now. And tomorrow as well, the amazing team is there. Uh, Eat a meal before you go. Make sure that you don't go fasted, like we mentioned, because there is a risk that you may faint and may not be able to go through with the donation. And we don't want that to happen. We want you guys to be as healthy as possible. So make sure you eat a meal, not right before going, but a few hours before you go. Make sure you eat a healthy meal, and try to drink a lot of water the day before or the day and the morning right before. So like that, we can make sure that you guys are healthy throughout the process. But yeah,
And also try not to drink the night before
yes.
or have too much coffee the day off. Um, Other thing is not just helping out all the lives. Of course, that's the main thing, but also like we were talking about, donating blood reduces your blood pressure immediately. As soon as you donate, your blood pressure goes down because again, you're taking out blood. So that is one of the things that affects your blood pressure. So if you already have blood pressure, as long as your physician is okay with it, you can help out minimize your hypertension right there. They're also like they give you either gift cards, certificates, or something that you can use local stores. So again, is all the things that you can do for our students. I know Mr. Paredes, I am doing it right now. If you're currently our students, like we offer extra credit. So besides helping out, we'll try to also help you out during classes. But at the end of the day, you should try to help out the community. The blood that we donate here, yeah, it goes to El Paso, but to get clearance and do all the tests, but then it comes back here in the community. So don't think that it's going to be sent somewhere else. It goes to go the test, but it comes back again to here in the valley. So maybe someone that you know might need it, and they'll be getting the blood. And as soon as you donate and they use the blood, you get a text notification that people is being safe and is using your blood. So that's one of the cool things about Vitalent. I know they're pretty proud about that system, and they're working on other better systems as well that we're probably going to talk later in the future.
Yeah, I remember donating blood. I believe my last semester that I was at UTRGV for my undergrad, I donated blood, and I think like 2 weeks later, I got a text message saying that uh, your your blood was used today. Um, I can't remember if it was used as a blood transfusion for a patient or it was used for an emergency surgery or something like that. So they kind of try to give you, as much information as they can, of course, without with violating, HIPAA violations and stuff like that. They'll just let you know, oh, your blood was used today for a blood transfusion for an example could be your blood was used today for a blood transfusion for a COVID patient. They kind of try to let what condition the patient was and stuff like that. And like Mr. Figueroa said, there's a new system that they're trying to develop to where the person that once the person has recovered, the person that uses your blood once they have recovered, they're trying to set up a system where a kind of a bit of an automated system that they'll be able to write a little message to you saying thank you so much. if they want, they can put my name is so and so. Thank you so much for your blood donation. It saved my life because of COVID or something like that. So they're trying to do a bit of a personalization of a message to give out to the donors. So I think that's really, really cool, and hopefully they get that up and running as soon as possible. Also, I want to mention I read in an article not too long ago that it is, highly encouraged that, especially that men donate blood, uh, given the reason that, females, we have a menstruation cycle. So since we have a menstruation cycle, we lose blood, and that allows our body to create new blood, create new hemoglobin. So it's kind of like a recycling process or a new birth process of new blood cells in our system. And for men, men don't have a menstruation cycle. So they're stuck with the blood that they have in their body for the rest of their lives. But by donating blood, you're taking out blood out of your body, and that kind of forces your body to create more blood because you did take a pint or two of blood out of your system. So it's a good way for men to create new blood cells. And it's a good way to take out some old blood from your body so that your body can make new blood to kind of give you fresh new blood in your system. So it's just a little fun fact that I read in an article not too long ago. So yeah, so that's one of the events that we're having today and tomorrow. And then also another event that is going on today at 7 p.m., which I'm very, very excited about, is we are having our Pixar virtual trivia night. That's tonight at 7 p.m. It is completely free. This is a new strategy that we're trying to test out for possible fundraising in the future, but tonight's is completely free. All you guys have to do is, if you guys go onto our event page, click on the event just like I did, and if you see right here where it says tickets, you click on find tickets here in the right hand corner, and it will take you to Eventbrite. And that's where you are going to click register. You fill out your information. So one admission ticket for free. As you can tell, it says free. And it'll prompt you to this, and it'll just ask you for your name and for your email. And make sure it is in, I can't stress this enough, make sure it's an email that you actively use, because a few minutes before 7 p.m., the email address that you give us is the email address that we are going to send you the link and the password to be able to join the virtual trivia. So like I said, it's completely free. As you can tell right here, it says total is 0. So it's really simple to go ahead and register. Again, you do have to register before 3 p.m. today, simply so that we want to make sure we give a cutoff so that we can make sure that we have priority to those people that registered, so that we can have those emails sent out. I think we have over 30 people that have already registered, so that's a lot of email addresses that we have to type in and that we have to get the link out to. So if you guys really want to be a part of this, the first place winner gets a $20 Chick-fil-A gift card. So you can get 2 free meals by playing trivia with us. It's about 15 questions. We will be posting the schedule as to what times the questions will be prompted out. So you will be getting the link. You can play on your phone or on your laptop. The link that you get, you click on it, and you will be seeing the questions and the answer choices on either your phone, your tablet, your laptop, and stuff like that. You can follow along with our live stream. We will be broadcasting it live, kind of like how we do with our live segments. We did one yesterday with our interns to kind of give another little test run. Jonathan, myself, Leo, and a bunch of our interns, we're going to be playing along with you guys, and we're going to be co-hosting, and we'll be giving really good commentary. Do not have hard feelings if we kind of sort of make fun of you. It's all of good hearts, we swear. But we are going to be your hosts and your commentators for the event. Don't worry, your face will not be posted on our video, on our live stream. The only thing that people will be able to see live is just your gamer name when we see the leaderboard. And so yeah, there might be a slight little lag as far as what you see on your phone on the app and what you see on screen on the live stream on Facebook. So that is why we're going to be posting a schedule. For example, we'll be starting off at 7. I believe the first question is going to be sent out at 7:10, and the other one at 7:15, just so that way you guys can pay attention to that schedule, so that you can know what time the next question is going to pop up on your phone, on your laptop, or wherever you're logged on to the game interface. But yeah, if you guys want to go ahead and join us, um, it's gonna be super super fun. We've played, I think already 2 3 days in a row just with us and the interns, and it's super super fun. And if you guys have, we're trying to get ideas of new topics and themes to play on. I know people wanted to do something on The Office, Keeping Up with the Kardashians, different TV shows or different movies. I think we're also trying to do a Marvel night as well. So if you guys are interested in a specific topic that you think that we could use, let us know. Um, Either DM us on Instagram or on Facebook, or commented during the live stream tonight any themes that you guys think would be cool. I know we did a Disney one, we did a Frozen one as kind of a test run, and it was really fun. So yeah, if you guys have any suggestions, comments, or anything like that, also don't be afraid to give us feedback, whether it is on the fundraiser tonight or in today's health literacy webinar or past webinars that we've had. If you guys have any questions or have any suggestions, I know Mr. Paredes mentioned this last Thursday, that we try our best to go back a few days after the live stream has been posted and try to go back and answer any questions that you guys leave in the comments after we've finished going live. But if you guys have any questions or any comments or any suggestions on how we can do these things better, please let us know. Send us a message on Facebook or Instagram. We try our best to answer as fast as possible, but any feedback is very, very greatly welcomed. Any ideas that you guys have that we can, any project ideas, maybe why don't you try doing this, and any type of new ideas and feedback that we can get from you guys would be very, very greatly appreciated, because at the end of the day, we do all of this for you. We do all of this for our audience. We do all this for our community. So if you feel that we could make a change, or if there is a need of a change or just a small tweak in a way that we do something, whether it's the material, the way that we stream it, anything like that, please feel free to let us know. And it helps us out greatly, because we want to make sure that we are benefiting, that you guys are benefiting as much as possible from these live streams. But yeah, Mr. Figueroa, if you have anything else to say before we go ahead and leave?
No, I mean, I need to keep up with the movies now, so I'll go right now and watch them. So I'm ready for that trivia.
Yeah, it's gonna be Pixar. So I know Disney Plus is a big thing right now. Uh, I believe a lot of people have like a Disney Plus slash Hulu package. So go watch some of those Pixar movies on Disney Plus, or go YouTube some stuff. Just some movies that are gonna be on there. Probably most likely Toy Story, Wally, Coco, The Incredibles, I think it's called A Bug's Life. I That was an old movie that came out a long time ago, but it came up there on the list. So yeah, so brush up on your Pixar facts, and we'll see you guys today at 7 p.m. Bye guys.
Take care. Thank you so much.